Alright everyone, welcome to my little Q&A celebration, 15,000 followers in YouTube, and I have prepared a bunch of questions from you guys. And let's begin with answering the most common questions that I usually get. I don't know how long time this is going to take, and I don't know if there's gonna be any follow-up questions from the people watching this little stream. We will see how it goes. Let's begin with answering. I'm from Sweden. I'm from my accent is Swedish, and I live in the capital of Sweden, Stockholm. And my name is pronounced Måns Predelius, but don't worry about that. You can call me however you try to pronounce me. The second most common thing I'm getting is I'm playing with top loaders. So this is my deck filled with, is it 100 cards? I think the commander is in here as well. Yeah, so this is 100 cards in quad sleeve top loaders. And this is how I shuffle. So I've made a little cut here that is making it possible for me to grab from the middle, to pull up here, drop it down in that area, and then I just tilt it to the other side. It's very hard to showcase here. And then I just drop it down here. I might make a follow-up video where I actually showcase the shuffling a little bit better. And I plan to actually build a better box. How is your day? That is a really good question. My day has been great. I've been sitting and planning this for a while. And I've been a little bit sleepy, but now I'm a bit more active and awake. I think I have to build something before this completely falls apart, but this tape, this coach tape right here is actually supporting the edges quite well, so I think this is going to last for a really long while, honestly. Well, I want to say one thing about shuffling is that I actually personally like it. It is very hard and sturdy, and you move around it like an object. It's basically a big tower, and it's easier to keep all the cards together, in my opinion. When you have new sleeves, you know when you put the sleeves down and you just fall to different sides and areas because it's so airy and poofy and slippery, you don't get that problem with these. Also, there's no accident of accidentally looking at the side of, let's actually move like this. So as you can see, there's a big wall here. So I can't see this card, so it's a deflecting swat, but it's very hard to actually see the deflecting swat because of that wall. And when you're shuffling with your deck like this, you have your deck like this, it is very easy to accidentally see the card. So you can see Kunoros there, quite easy. So I think that is actually an upside with this box, as well as having everything moving around. So I can just basically put this box and put it down on the ground, and it stays like this. And I just, okay, show you like this. I just pull cards from the top. Super simple. There's always more need for more stuff. That's true. So the first question is from Elliot Levy. Congrats of the 15k. My question for queuing: how long does it take to fully top load 3 sleeves at 100 card deck? And how do you feel to randomize and the box shuffle is as good as mass shuffle? How long do you have the box to reach that? And also, how long have you been playing Magic and cEDH? So let's begin with the top loader thing. I've already talked a tiny bit about it. I did an experiment once where I took 5 cards and I placed them all together. I can't really showcase the experiment right now, but I could do it in a video in the future. So I put 5 basic lands. The entire deck only contained 5 basic lands. I put them all together in the middle, exactly next to each other. And then I sat here shuffling like this for 3 minutes. Actually, I shuffled it for 2 minutes. The reason I shuffled for 2 minutes is because according to the rules, I'm allowed to shuffle for 3 minutes. If it takes more than 3 minutes to effectively randomize your deck, your shuffling method isn't legal. I don't know exactly what they're going to do about it in a tournament, but in general, you have to be able to shuffle your deck in 3 minutes. So after 2 minutes of shuffling like this, and I do it pretty much quickly without talking, of course, I then went through the entire deck, and I noticed that all my 5 basic lands were spread out randomly throughout the entire deck. So that's my answer to your question. How long does it take to make it to shuffle it? 2 minutes doing this little side to side shuffle, and it gets completely randomized, in my opinion. I'm not a mathematician, and I don't quote me on too much. So here are more boxes. More boxes. More boxes. Oh, more box. Another fat pack box. Another fat pack box. Here's another box. Don't fall. Alright, I think you get the picture. I think I'm gonna move away from using those fat packs and eventually use these. Here you see the Mark Archive and Ultimate Guard. And it actually contains, they fit perfectly. I think this is gonna be my main way of storing my cards in the future, because it's very easy to move around these ones. You can just put it into a shelf, take it out real easy. So it moves around pretty smooth and simple. All the decks you currently see, they're not decks. So I only have one deck at a time built, and I basically deassembled this deck. This is currently my cEDH Weatherlight Captain Stacks deck. And whenever I want to build a new deck, I take all of these cards apart, use only this box as my main shuffling box, and then I search through all of these boxes for the cards I want to build in my new deck, and then I just put that together. Do you play at an LGS? And if so, do you have Get Around and what? I have a lot of things to say about that, because the meta in our LGS was really spicy, and I played a lot. I played every Thursday in my local game store, but that changed after the corona, so now I haven't seen any one of them in a while, so we'll see how it goes. Our meta was extremely creature heavy. No one played board wipes, because everyone played creatures themselves. The only board wipe people played was Fire Covenant, because you could target your opponent's creatures, you could make your own survive. So that was basically the only board wipe people played. And some decks played, like Tassigur and Kendriff played, and also Kes played Toxic Deluge, because they could make their own commander survive. So that was it. And sometimes they didn't have that many creatures in play, and then they could basically play Toxic. So it was an extremely strange meta with a lot of creatures. There were one time where there were like 50% of the player base in our local game store of cEDH players played Nayela the Blade Blossom. How did you get into Magic the Gathering, especially the Commander format? Who influenced you to start a YouTube channel? So this is a great question. It actually comes back to this question as well. How long have you been playing Magic? I've been playing Magic since I was 12 years old. I started, a friend of mine showcased Portal to me. He received some free Magic cards in a magazine, and then we just sat and played during breaks at school. And I think I came into contact with Commander. I played with a bunch of older people. I played basically, if you know what Type 2, or we played something more like Type 1 but casual, which is a very strange thing. I don't know if you know what Type 1 and Type 2 are. I was playing against decks that contain Black Lotuses and Ancestral Recalls and Moxes, and I'm actually talking about the real ones. One of the stronger decks I went up against usually went Black Lotus, sack it for 3 green mana, cast Channel, pay 15 life, cast Emrakul, attack, or well, take the extra turn, then attack, and that was basically his deck. And that wasn't the strongest deck. The strongest deck was a Goblin deck that didn't contain a Black Lotus. So we played something of a casual Type 1. You were also allowed, I also played 4 copies of Strip Mine. But those people actually showcased Commander to me once. We were gonna have we actually played 1v1 Commander because they hated multiplayer. So the first time I actually played Commander was a 1v1 scenario, and it was the same mindset. It was extremely busted. I think someone actually had, what is the name? The Time Vault and Volcanic Key. So there's this artifact that is actually banned in EDH, where you tap it and you take an extra turn, but in order to untap it, you have this, I forgot the card actually, but it's busted. If you have Volcanic Key, you can untap that thing and you gain infinite turns. And I started playing this when I was around 23, 4 something. 23, 4, 2, 22, 23, 24 something. Actually, I started playing it when Emrakul came. That's when I started playing Commander for the first time. It was about the same time the first Emrakul came. Someone wanted to start a tournament in my local game store. It was supposed to be casual. I kind of broke the meta and started to appear with some competitive decks. They weren't really competitive decks, they were something you would consider casual competitive, but they were too good. Why you got into Magic? We already talked about that, but the second question, why did you decide to start doing videos? And this is actually tying together with my background story here. So this local game store tournament that a friend of mine, she wanted to create this casual tournament, and I started to showing up with some competitive broken decks. And eventually people learned that this guy Mons, he has some really good answers. So they started to ask me, would you like to take a look at my deck and see if you can make any suggestions? And that was really fun. It was really fun helping kids out, getting better at Magic. I was something around 26. 26 years old about this time. And kids that were 18, 20 came up to me and asked, could you make my deck? What would you suggest about my deck? But that took so extremely high amount of energy. I mean, it was really fun, but so inefficient way of helping people. So I decided to make a video. And my first video is not actually about cEDH. It's about playing better Commander, but it's definitely more tuned towards casual players. The channel was actually named The Gathering Channel, and the cEDH TV name was basically changed later. But then I realized it was so extremely fun making videos, so I made another one, and then another one, and then suddenly people started following it, and here we are, 3 years later. Oh no. They figured me out here. So Mons is the evil pop stomper and introduced his meta to more cutthroat fun commander vibe. Yes, I did. I really did. The one person during that creation of the tournament actually hit me right here in this, right here, like BAM! And it was actually a she. She said, "You deserve that." I was playing my Gitrog monster and I killed everyone at turn 3. And see, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Alright, here's a question from Geosource from YouTube. Question for the Q&A. Could you give a tour to all your proxy cards in a dedicated video? I think I actually could do that. I don't think that many people will actually enjoy seeing it. I make some videos that aren't actually about strictly cEDH. I made a video about is it worth buying Gaia's Cradle. So I guess I could make one of these. I have been thinking about doing a video regarding proxies in general, and in that video I might be able to showcase a few proxies here and there. Just call me Gato. What would you say are the top 5 best cEDH decks currently and why? So, the top 5 best currently and why? That's a tough one. There actually was the number 1 best deck before, and it was the PST Thrasius, Paradox, and Scepter, or Paradox, Scepter, Thrasius. It was a long time ago, so I haven't said it in a while. But that deck was absurdly strong. Now, this was of course before Paradox Engine was banned, and this was also before Fastest Oracle and Underworld Breach existed, and also before Dockside Extortionist existed. But this deck was definitely, in my opinion, the strongest. And I wasn't the only one saying that. There are other content creators that have said that PST was the one deck. It was the deck. But today, I don't know if you have a deck that is claiming the top 1 spot. I've heard that Kess Consultation and Kess Underworld Breach and Consultation is doing really well. Today, I think the 5 best deck would be... It's a good question if Tymna and Thrasius are still the number 1. They have actually dropped a little bit because red has proven to be so good of a color currently that you wanna play Vile Smasher or Bruce together with Thrasius instead. And that is actually rather amazing. So now we have a bunch of different contenders for the top 5 spot, where before it was basically TNT is the best and everything else is not best. So now it's, I don't know, I think it's gonna be still partners. I don't think Kenrith, I think Kenrith is really close up there, but he's so expensive and the meta is so fast that a 5 CMC commander is a little bit tricky. This is where I think Tastri could perform maybe a little bit better, because the CMC of Tastri, you can actually cast Tastri quite consistently for only 2 mana or maybe 3 mana. And that's a big difference compared to casting Tastri for 5 mana. Or your Kenrith for 5 mana. Have I forgot? Elsha? I don't think Elsha is up there. I don't think Corvold is up there. I don't think the first Sliver is up there. I don't think the Kima Food Chain are up there. Definitely Thrasius partnered up with... I still think Tymna Thrasius are up there. I'm answering these questions for far too long. I hope you got your answer. It's a very tricky question. Sur. What about Sur? Question from the chat. No, I don't think Sur is up there. Sur, we're actually gonna come to that later, because I prepared all these questions, and there's actually a question regarding a few commanders that are dropping, so I'm gonna actually come back to Sir later. So here we have Revel. Transmog is Abia. What gets bullied by Paku? Ad nauseum gets kinda. What gets bullied by Paku? Control decks. Mid-range control decks gets really bullied by Paku. If Paku is the only deck that isn't all in fast combo deck, it is really hard to get through with Paku, because people are gonna try to win before Paku gets going. If you have, let's say, one more control deck, let's say a medium green or a Thrasius Bruce deck in general, you're probably gonna bully that pod, because they are gonna help you make the game a little bit longer, and in the longer games, Paku really dominates. And after a while, Paku just takes over the game, because you're drawing somewhere around 2 to 3 cards each turn, and that is quite OP. And anything that assembles this is very similar to this value train, basically have the same answer. So even though this is a specific question about Paco, it goes a little bit more out universal. Any deck that enjoys long game scenarios and can take over the game, being the so-called the late game deck, this is actually something me and William talked about in a podcast, could definitely do this thing too. cEDH 3, I'm going to try Lift Form Engine in my mind and level C. Do you think this can work? There's a lot of cards. We're actually gonna get to that later because there's a question about a card, and your question will also be answered in that, but let's go with it now anyways. When you see a card in cEDH, or when you see a new printed card, you often see the potential in that card. For example, this engine, it can do a lot of cool stuff. It can basically does the same thing as Isoconceptor. You cast your Dramatic Reversal, and you copy it with the engine, and then you go infinite mana. So yes, this is actually suddenly a good card. It's a combo piece. It's a 2-card combo with Dramatic Reversal. And it has some other benefits as well, so suddenly a good card. However, when it comes to competitive Magic, regardless of what format it is, this will apply to Vintage, Legacy, and Modern as well. If there is another card that is doing the exact same thing, but better, suddenly this card isn't that good anymore. And that's the sad answer to almost every commander that is new. So for example, so the new Omnath, Locus of Creation, that is 4-color, is the same answer. It is actually a decent functional card. It's a food chain commander, perfect. But the first sliver is probably better, and Ukima Kasur might also be better. So suddenly the Omnath isn't good. This was also true for the Niv Mizzet Reborn 5-color, which was cEDH viable for a month, and then they printed the first sliver, and then they just replaced the Niv Mizzet Prune. However, I definitely think you should try it out, because playtesting will tell if there is something unique with a specific card that is doing something a little bit worse compared to Isoconceptor, but might have another potential. The Ursa Discords want to love it so much, but it requires too much to get going in comparison with everything. Yeah, I agree with you here, Tangelo. Oh, this is a big question. From Frogman Atog. Are there any cEDH deck that used to be good? Here they call. This is the question I was talking about before. Playable, viable, etc., but are no longer playable because of changes in the format over the past year. This is an amazing question. I really love it, and it deserves its own video, honestly. This is going back to the question about Sur and Nigella. So yes, Sur, Prosh, Dareva is actually still up there, and Nigella is actually also still up there. Carador, Animar used to be pretty bad, but have come back. Yeah, Mishra. Oh, Mishra. I remember Mishra. It goes back to the same concept. If there is another commander that's doing the exact same thing, for example, take Narset, the first Narset, the Enlightened Master with infinite turns and infinite combat steps. You attack, you exile the top 4, and from there you basically take infinite turns for the rest of the game. There is another commander that's doing basically the exact same thing. It goes by the name of Idris. And when Idris came, there was no really a point in playing Narset, because once you attack with Idris, you also win. And one commander costs 6 mana, and the other commander costs 4 mana, and the other commander with 4 mana has better card identities, so that made the cut for Narset in general. I think the big reason Sur has fallen off a little bit, the main reason is that you're not on the color end of red, and that's strange because red isn't really the cEDH color, but now today maybe red is the cEDH color. So from Mr. Disaster, this is a content creator playing of Magic, I believe. My question is, how do you decide the cards you would want to play in the deck? Oh, this is a good question. For example, in the cool Paco Haldan deck and the cool Thrasis Vial Smasher Valakut deck, so how I decide and basically put my deck together is that, for example, let's take my Thrasius Vial Smasher Valakut deck. If I have an Ad Nauseam and I cast Ad Nauseam, this can happen pretty quickly. I have some fast mana, I have Soldering, Mox, Diamond, Carp of the Flowers, a lot of stuff that is gonna give me the mana for Ad Nauseam quickly, and some tutors for Ad Nauseam, cast Ad Nauseam, and I win. But I also want to make the deck synergize as good as I can, because when you don't get to do your push the win button, what are you going to do? And I try to find synergies and try to complement the deck in all small edges on the corners, rinse and repeat, which everyone else is doing. Take for example, Any person that have played a specific deck for a really long time are starting to spread out and find new specific tweaks to their deck, which is making it more unique. Usually people begin with net decking. Let's take Blue Farm for example. You begin with assembling Blue Farm. Just go to internet, look up the deck, you copy it completely, you play it for a few months, and eventually you're starting to tweak the deck with the rinse and repeat, and you find how you want to go with your personal style. And then he has another question, is how do you decide on what type of win con you want on the deck? I made a video about this. I usually grab my win con first. I usually say I want to play, let's take Ad Nauseam. So Ad Nauseam is a great example because there's so many different Ad Nauseam decks out there. The farm decks, so to say, Blue Farm, Mad Farm, Sad Farm, Yuriko Ad Nauseam, etc, etc. And my tweak simply became Valakut Ad Nauseam because that's more to my style. But when I built Valakut, I actually built it with the thought of Ad Nauseam first, and then the Valakut and the Thrasis and Vial Smasher just followed. To begin with, it was actually Nigella. He was the commander for my Valakut Ad Nauseam deck. But then I realized I don't need the color ended of white, and Thrasis is just doing this better. So it is something. I grabbed the win con, and then I try to construct the deck afterwards. You already did a video about how to enter cEDH format. What is the deck or specific commander you would recommend when starting in cEDH? This is an amazing question. I truly recommend grabbing a commander that is very simple and not complex, and also on a budget that has a really simple combo to it. For example, I don't recommend Gitrog Monster because that is an extremely judge question commander. I don't recommend Yisan anymore. I used to do that, but I got smashed by a veteran Yisan player who said it's not an easy deck to play, and he was actually right. Yisan is probably not the best deck to begin with. I don't recommend Bloodpot. I don't recommend CC, Weatherlight Captain, and I don't recommend any deck that is basically a stacks deck. I recommend all the consultation decks. Tassigur, cheaper, it's very simple to understand. I see a lot of new cEDH player playing Nigella. I think Nigella is pretty fine. Yeah, you can build Nigella on something of a good price. And I think Nigella is pretty easy to play. Yeah, I think Nigella is great. Question from Dart. How do you feel about Venota Joiner Force? Would you do a video on her, make a deck tech? I really want to make a deck tech on her. I plan to do a video on her. She's actually on the schedule. But I want to see a little bit more action from her. I've played against her 4 to 5 times currently. And I've actually lost to her, but she hasn't really performed that well, which was actually expected. I didn't think she was going to be that amazing. I think she is probably the best Boros commander we have. This is also a Boros commander that could get a lot stronger in the future, because they could basically, whatever they are, as long as they are printing something that is human and not human, that is gonna be that Venota wanna play, that is going to buff her. She can really take over the game. She's very similar to Paco. If the game just gets a little bit longer, she can just take it. How have you felt the metagame has shifted since the flash ban, and do you see any big shifts against in the near future in regards to speed and win cons? So I actually think that the metagame hasn't shifted that much in the flash ban at all, in my opinion. It's still the same, fast, win quick. Like Ad Nauseam was played heavily before Flash was banned. Flash and Ad Nauseam was usually played together in the same deck. You usually played Fast as Oracle together with Flash. So in general, it's the same meta. The thing that has changed is the so-called Mexican standoff situation, where the turn order isn't really important anymore. Games are ending usually the same amount of turns. People should know this. Just because you ban Flash, the format isn't going to go slower. The format is still a pretty fast turn 3, turn 4 format. From UCCC Super Friends from Discord. What do you currently think is the best CC build? That is a really good question, and I think the one that I have right now is right on the mark. However, there is no best CC build, because CC, in my opinion, is a meta deck, and she adapts towards the meta. For example, Gadok Teague. I'm currently playing Gadok Teague in my deck because Ad Nauseam has become extremely common. I usually end up having 3 opponents with all of them having Ad Nauseam in the decks, and then Gadok Teague is suddenly a viable hate bear. It's a great card for CC in the current meta, but if that changes, then you need to swap that out and tweak it again. There is an exception. There are a few CC decks that are actually popping up that have this really high speed to them. For example, Rebels CC deck, which is basically the same deck as Gollus Ad Nauseam and Peer into the Abyss, but they are playing CC instead because CC can also fetch Boseiju, and CC is a lot more grindier. It's basically having a little more of a Thrasius style of a deck, but still having the same Gollus Ad Nauseam deck. And that deck isn't a meta deck. That is basically just a kind of a fast combo deck, but it's more mid-range style. CC as a meta deck is probably where you want to be, in my opinion. Alright, from can't pronounce your name, I'm really sorry. Do you have a general template you use for deck construction, for example, number of ramp and draw X cards? So I've already talked about this in a previous question from the same, that I don't have a template in general. It's rinse and repeat, and I just do it all over and over just to kind of figure out how I want the deck to function. And then I kind of tweak it and experiment in the way in new branches to see where does that lead to, and then I divert back. I think the answer to this question is actually playtesting. That is honestly a really good answer to this question. I just discovered it right now. So my template is playtesting. What is the most surprising cEDH deck you have seen built? The most surprising deck I have built was my Valakut Ad Nauseam. When I built my Valakut Ad Nauseam, it was actually a practical joke. Do you remember what is the name of that commander now? It's a mono red commander that has 99 mountains in it. And I came up with a similar joke where I would play Valakut, Mana Bond, and Ad Nauseam. And I was thinking, this is gonna be so hilarious if I resolve it. People are gonna sit there and watch me flip the top of my deck until I find Mana Bond, and then just put everything into play and kill everyone. They're gonna laugh so hard. So I built it as a casual deck. And then I started to actually, as I talked about previously, I started to make it better. Because rinse and repeat, playtest, you figure it out. And eventually I saw like, oh wait a minute, this is actually almost functional. I can actually put together a deck that can win from a 40 life total-ish, resolve Ad Nauseam. And I tried against competitive decks, and it's after a few tries and rinse and repeats and a few tweaks to it, it started to actually perform pretty decent. And that really surprised me. I didn't think Ad Nauseam Valakut Mana Bond would work. I'm honest, I thought it was a joke when I built it. What's the name of that deck? The Hackball also surprised me. When I first saw Hackball, I was amazed. It was like, what is this? I didn't see this coming. This is genius. Why didn't I think of it? Here we have a question from Celt, King of the Atogs. On a scale from 1 to yes, what is your favorite color? Something something. My favorite color is yellow. That's why this box is yellow. My favorite color in Magic is green. Forests are stronger than islands because forests can cast Bird of Paradise. And with Bird of Paradise, you can cast anything. Barretto. What is your favorite video from cEDH TV? My favorite video I ever made. My favorite video is actually the Mexican Standoff Explained. I really enjoyed that video. When I made that video, or when I decided to make that, Alex actually explained a little bit about if you want to make money on YouTube and if you want to receive views on YouTube, you want to do videos about new commanders. If you're doing EDH, that is. Because people want to see the new commanders. They want to see reviews on the new commanders. They want to see deck techs on the new commanders. They want to see gameplays on the new commanders. And that is why you're seeing so many channels playing strange and a little bit obscured commanders from time to time. From the example, the Command Zone, they're always playing the new commanders whenever they do a new video. And I also do this. I also make videos about the new stuff as well. But I think YouTube and video making is an art similar to painting and painting. For me, I really want to make specific videos that I really enjoy because there is this urge of expressing yourself and saying something to the world, and that's really beautiful and it's really enjoyable saying something you are walking around with. And for all of you who want to get into content creating or making YouTube, if you want to say in my opinion, one of the most beautiful things is to be able to say something and express yourself and get your voice a little bit heard. And I really wanted to make that video, the Mexican Standoff Explained, because I felt that was such a important topic for this game, and I thought it was a very educational thing people should know about in this format, and it was something I've been walking around with trying to explain to people, so I really enjoyed making that video. Another one of those is the cantrip control. I really like my cantrip control video. I think it nailed it how I want. This was a message I wanted people to hear. Sorry for dragging out this question for so long, but it felt really important. Mons, very important question. What is your favorite food? Pancakes. I like pancakes. I really like pancakes. Bacon. PogChamp. I like bacon. I do like bacon. I love bacon, spaghetti, and ketchup and pepper. I want my bacon. Bacon, bagels, and bacon, bagels, pancakes. Oh, that sounds like something great. Celt, King of Atogs. If you could play EDH, what format do you think you would play? What about if you couldn't play EDH, clones, conquest, oathbreakers, etc.? Before cEDH or before EDH, I played casual. My definition of casual, which is kitchen table where everything... When I played casual, I mentioned this in the beginning of this little live stream. I used to play against people that had Black Lotus, several copies of Demonic Tutor in the decks. For example, one of my casual decks contained 3 copies of Demonic Tutors, and you're not allowed to have that. I also had a deck with 4 strip mines in them, and I defined that deck as a casual deck. And you're not allowed to have 4 copies of strip mine. And I would probably go back to that, which is basically kitchen table vintage. I don't think I would play anything else. I might play vintage, actual vintage. Don't think I would play, I might play some legacy eventually. From ProGrow, what is your favorite pet card across all formats of all time? I actually mentioned a card in a video called Gain Control of Cards in cEDH. And my favorite card of all time is Desertion. But it's a 5 mana cost, counter target spell, 2 blue, 3 generic. But if you counter an artifact or creature, you gain control of that artifact or creature. And when I was a kid, when I was like 13 years old, my best deck contained 4 copies of Desertion, and the rest was control, like duress, similar cards, and blockers, and counter spells, and lightning bolts. And my main win con was to steal your creature with Desertion and then we kill you with that. Yeah, that was fun. I was a great kid. It goes back to my childhood. Hot guy, Kenrith is king. Do you have any pets? If not, what pet do you want to have, if any? I don't have any pets. Personally, I don't want to have any pets, but we are going to have guinea pigs. My girlfriend is extremely in love in guinea pigs. We usually watch a lot of guinea pig videos together, and I have to admit they are really cute. And if I would say no to guinea pigs, she would break up with me. That I am certain of. But I don't mind having some guinea pigs, so I think when we move, we're probably gonna get some guinea pigs. And the last question, until we reach the chat's questions. From Heyfound, what was your inspiration from beginning this channel? And how do you come to cEDH? Did you start as a casual player or was a competitive legacy vintage? Okay, so I've actually answered a few of these things, but there are actually there are some here that I haven't answered. My inspiration for cEDH was actually Team Turn Free, which is a YouTube channel that doesn't perform content anymore, but I do believe that they stream on Twitch. Team Turn Free. You should check them out, and they were a big inspiration for me. I like their content. How long have you been playing Magic? I started playing when I was 12 years old. A friend of mine had a magazine, and in the magazine, Wizard sent a bunch of Portal cards, and we played during school breaks, and from there I kind of picked it up at a young, early age. And I actually started buying some really expensive cards early as well, because when I was a kid, I looked at these cards and said, damn, this is expensive. I guess I will never eat some candy anymore. And I basically took all my candy money and bought cards with them. And I'm really happy about that, because today I own some really expensive cards that I purchased for a really cheap $10 or less, like $5 for a Gilded Drake. I think I paid €4 for an Academy Rector. So I entered the game early, and that is why I have a really big collection. Swedish is a very strange dialect that makes it very hard to say specific things, because you always destroy the word with your Swedish dialect. Finnish is the same. Have you watched Leptis live streams? You should. This Finnish dialect is very unique. So, do you think the format is getting too cluttered lately with the companions and the other abundance of strong legendary creatures? I think that the format has gotten better, actually, with the new printing of cards. has evolved the format. If you look at how much people played Thrasios and Tymna and how less people are playing Thrasios and Tymna today, I think that is a good evolvement. And I think a lot of that is coming from new cards that are upgrading the color identity of red, and I hope they're gonna do something similar to white. White has gotten Smothering Tide, and that is a great card. They got Emil the Blessed, which is also a great card, and Sevane's Reclamation is also a great card. So we are getting here, and I think the format is getting actually better and better, in my opinion. When partners came, they killed diversity, and now we are starting to see more diversity again. That's my opinion. I don't have statistics, so I could be wrong. I could definitely be wrong on that. Yeah, 40 partners incoming, that is true. But I don't think 40 new partners are gonna destroy the format. I think they are gonna help diversify it a little bit as well. Moving on, Tackle Pig. Not really for the Q&A, but do you have the music you made from this available somewhere? Okay, I know where you're writing about this one. I'll also say it's more like neo-folk. Okay, yeah, you're asking about the gameplay music. I actually made that gameplay music myself. I'm gonna link it. I'm gonna link it in the description below of this YouTube video. I have a 1 hour, 17-minute long pure music video that is uploaded on a different YouTube account where you can listen to the gameplay music if you want to have that. And I agree, it's something neo-folk dungeon. I want it to be a little bit dark, so to say. From Fjord. Where did you get these basic land proxies? I haven't played with them for a while, so none of you have actually seen them for a while, but they are from a Russian that I found on eBay. I don't know if he's still active doing proxies. You can easily find proxies anywhere. I actually contacted the person. I said, I want this, could you do this? And he said yes. And then we talked a little bit back and forth. My recommendation is find someone you trust and then have a conversation with them if you want to purchase proxies from someone. I hope that answered your question. I don't have any contact information with him anymore. That was a long time ago. So we have a bunch of queued questions. From Natarian, do you enjoy the Fasa Oracle and the Demonic Consultation meta? Yeah. To me, it doesn't matter what combos people are playing. It's not really about the combos. It's about how you get there. I was never really annoyed about the concept of Flash. But I'm also a person that enjoy mirror matchups. I don't mind if all of us are sitting and doing the exact same thing. You can basically take any combo whatsoever, and I wouldn't care that it existed. How you get to your finisher, that's the interesting part. The Black Captain. Do you have any casual EDH decks? And I think Tangelo adding to Captain's question, what is your favorite casual deck? Do I have a real casual deck? Do I have an actual real casual deck? I have a casual deck I want to build, but I haven't had time to put it together. It's a cEDH deck. I wanted to make an art picture, which would be cEDH and the complete Weatherlight crew with the Minotaur Tangar, Squee, and it was basically going to be the original Weatherlight crew. That is a deck that is not built to do something cool. That is not a deck that is built to win. That is a deck built on theme, the theme of the Weatherlight. So I guess that's the real answer. But I don't have that deck. I've never put it together, but I want to put it together. From Ismerku. Hello, may I ask why you do keep all of your cards in top loaders? There are several reasons for that, actually. Let's actually begin with one of the main reasons I discovered eventually over time. They don't catch glue on them. All of your usual double-sleeved and also triple-sleeved sleeves eventually get this very ugly fatty dirt on them, and top loaders don't get that, and I don't know why they don't get that. Maybe it's something magical about the plastic, but a theory that I have is that when you're shuffling, they are scraping off the fatty acid from them because the edges are actually quite sharp and they are more like corners. They're not like this, like a normal sleeve, pointy and edgy. They're more like this. So I think they are actually scrapping off that, and that is a big reason why I love top loaders now. I didn't know that until I actually had them for a while, and I noticed they are not getting dirty, and I love that. Another big reason is that they feel really safe. I like how they sound when you put them down. There's a lot of different things I like about them. I don't recommend it. It is something for weird people like me. I'm weird, I know. And it is something where when you have a specific strange need. How did you get into cEDH and how long ago was it? I got into cEDH I got into real cEDH when Gitrog was printed. No. When Gitrog Monster was spoiled. I think that's when I started playing actual real cEDH. I played competitive. I didn't have any opponents back then, so I didn't have anyone to build a super tier 1 deck. So I knew what cEDH was, but I didn't have anyone to play against it with, so I built pseudo-optimal, like semi-competitive. I played something very similar to how casual competitive does it. Very similar to that. But when Gitrog came, that was actually my kind of first competitive deck. What do you think about webcam playing versus in person and the big difference? Yes! I think it's a huge difference. Like, you can't compare it. I would play face-to-face in person every single day I could. Instead of webcam. But it's very tricky to play against people across the world that aren't living locally in your own city if you want to play against them. So you can't get around it. You have to do webcam games these days if you want to meet a bigger variety of people. In essence, webcam games are great because you can sit home, you don't need to travel to your local game store, you can go to your kitchen and eat food. It's a very convenient way of doing it, but it doesn't feel the same for me. I really want to play in person. I really want to play with you guys in person. When the coronavirus stops, I might start to do some traveling again. I traveled to Japan before the coronavirus started, and I got home in perfect timing, and that was amazing. I'll get to play with some Japanese people, some Magic, and that was great. I'm gonna travel to Denmark because Denmark actually have a big tournament, and I think I want to travel to Brazil because there's a lot of Brazilians who are actually watching me. And it looks like Brazil has a really big cEDH scene, so I want to go there and beat them up. Time for your question. Do you think cEDH should be a separate format from EDH? This is a really good question. My answer is no. Straight up, I don't think so. And there's a very good reason for that. I do think that maybe you could make a new format that is more tweaked towards cEDH, or that would supplement and try to answer all the problems casual EDH got. But you can't take away the competitive part from normal EDH. Because when you create that new format that is supposed to be a competitive variant to the EDH format, that format is also going to have a casual side to it. I've been talking a lot about in this video my style of casual, and I've been mentioning vintage. And if I would stop playing EDH, I would start playing casual vintage, because that's what I played before EDH. So, and even in a format like vintage that is viewed like the ultimate competitive format, there are people like me that play it casually. So if you create this new format that would be the competitive EDH, that would also have a casual side. And even when you create that is going to be different from the normal cEDH as we know it. And there are people that are going to still enjoy that part, like they want to enjoy the busted things. So I don't think you should, and I don't think you can. But I think you should create more formats. I think formats that like Oathbreaker and Conquest and all these formats, I'm not against them being created. I think they should be created because we could discover more areas. Who is the best player in Stockholm? Me! Those of you who don't know, this is from Pontus. He's a friend of mine. He's from he's one of the guys he's from a local game store. All right, Pontus. So you know what? For your own, because I like you so much, you're the best player. You can quote. You can record this little part of the stream. Take it and publish it and have it official. Måns is declaring Pontus as the best player in Stockholm. I don't know if we have a best player in our local game store. There's actually a lot of people that want this. I've read a lot of people. There's actually a lot of people asking me questions. They want to have cEDH, the mentality of cEDH, but they want to have something slower. And I actually helped a guy make a CC deck on $100 because they had a local tournament, and I think this is awesome. This is actually something I almost want to play, where every deck had to be $100. It was basically budget cEDH. It was still competitive, it was still like cutthroat, play to win, but the power level was just lower. And I think this is definitely something that should be explored more. I think this is a great entry for budget, and I think this is a great... It's definitely a different format because some of the combos suddenly disappear, and then suddenly some of the stacks pieces aren't viable anymore either. Alright guys, this stream has gotten a little bit longer than I planned. It was intended to be 1 hour, but it's stretched out to 2 hours in various different rants. You're doing the right thing, MTG Player. Thanks for hanging out and thanks for coming by. And thank you for your questions. It was lovely to read them. It was fun to answer them too. I hope you had a jolly good time. And if you ever want to hear more rants about random stuff, you can ask away on the live stream, similar to this. Okay, this stream is gonna go on longer. You've done it. I don't care. I don't care if you all leave. I'm gonna sit there and talk for myself. Yes. This is chiropractor activated. You've asked a chiropractor specific question, so now you're gonna get a chiropractic specific answer. I gotta turn off the recording, by the way. This is not gonna. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.